and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Chopra. Ahead of Budget 2025, salary taxpayers are eagerly anticipating the possibility of receiving additional tax relief to help alleviate the financial burden imposed on their salary incomes. The upcoming union budget may bring about certain changes, including the possibility of exempting annual incomes up to Rs 10 lakh from the taxation bracket and introducing a new 25% tax bracket for incomes ranging from Rs 15 lakh to Rs 20 lakh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, during his address ahead of the budget, has also perhaps given a hint for some sort of relief for the middle class, for the Aam Aadmi. Let's quickly listen to what he said and then we take this conversation forward with our guests.
हम सर्वांगीण विकास के संकल्प को लेकर के मिशन मोड में आगे बढ़ते जा रहे हैं। इनोवेशन, इंक्लूजन और इन्वेस्टमेंट, ये लगातार हमारे आर्थिक गतिविधि के रोड मैप का आधार रहा है। इस सत्र में हमेशा की तरह कई ऐतिहासिक बिल पर सदन को चर्चा होगी और व्यापक मंथन के साथ वो राष्ट्र की ताकत बढ़ाने का काम करने वाला कानून बनेंगे।
All right, we of course take this conversation forward. I have with me on the broadcast Sharad Kohli, senior economist, Rajiv Gupta, economist as well, Sumit Peer, political commentator, Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, and Professor Vivek Singh, economist, with us as well. Let me begin with Sharad Kohli. Sharad Kohli, year after year we've been having these conversations ahead of the budget about any sort of relief for the middle class. As far as your reading of the government is concerned, in your assessment, are we looking at the possibility of the basic exemption limit on income tax being raised?
Good evening, Devika. Good evening to my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. Yes, why not? Expectations have to be there, and rightly so. You know, you need to look at the numbers, Devika. Just allow me to take you through the numbers. The size of Indian middle class, as per my own estimate, is about 60 crores. The size of taxpayers, the number of taxpayers in this country, we call them as return filers. They are about 8 to 10 crores. Now, out of this, a startling revelation is that out of these 8 to 10 crore return filers, the actual taxpayers, that is the people who take out from their pocket and actually deposit in the treasury, you'll be surprised that their number is very low as about 2 crores or so, or maybe little more than 2 crores. Now, if we are looking at relief, and surprisingly, these 2 crore people, Devika, they give 22 to 24 lakh crores of revenue. This also includes corporate taxpayers, by the way. So they give that kind of tax collection. Yes, so they should be, I call them as VIPs. They are, because out of 145 crore people, if there are only 2.5 crore people paying taxes, actually I'm talking of direct taxes. Of course, GST is being paid by the entire country, entire lot of 145 people crore, including a newborn baby for baby food and diapers. But these people, yes, they are looking up to relief. There are two regimes in tax, Devika. There is an old tax regime, which is being given a bit of a stepmotherly treatment for the last few years. It's been left untouched. There are no changes being made, obviously because our finance minister wants people to move to the new regime, as many as possible. And interestingly, 2/3 people have moved to the new regime because over the last few budgets, it's been made more and more attractive. And I think that is going to continue, no doubt. So when it comes to new regime, the tax starts from 3 lakhs. So there's 3 lakhs to 6 lakh, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, and then over 15. The rates are 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and then 30%. So yes, from 3 lakhs, this should be moved up to 2 lakhs. There's no doubt about that. And then when it comes to standard deduction, because a lot of people are salaried and they are the most honest and one of the biggest taxpayers in terms of individual taxpayers category. The 75,000 limit, which was brought in the new regime, I think because of inflation and the various kind of expenses which a salaried individuals expense, which a business wala can claim a lot of expenses, but a salaried person cannot claim expenses. So this should be taken up to 100,000. I'm expecting probably standard deduction to be taken up to 1 lakh. Then from 3 lakhs to about 7.5 lakh, there is a section called section 87A, under which you get 25,000 rupees rebate. I'm expecting this rebate limit of 7.5 to be raised to 10 lakhs, which means in 87A, you get more tax rebate. Then of course, the highest taxation starts from 15%, 15 lakhs, which is 30%. Now the middle class definition, Devika, over a period of time when 5-6 lakhs earner was considered as middle class, that has moved up. Person earning about 1 lakh rupees a month or 1,25,000 is the new middle class definition as per me, and because of the kind of expenses, because they don't end up saving anything. So that 15 lakh threshold for imposing maximum tax of 30% should be raised to 18 lakhs or 25 lakhs. So these are the changes which I feel they should be done. I am expecting. And then the biggest point, Devika, is in the last budget, the finance minister spoke about a new tax system which is simpler, which is easier to read, easy to comply. So are we going to see that new one? That will be a big one. That will be a big announcement if that happens. I also heard a couple of days ago that there could be a situation where they may move some of the smaller tax amendments out of the bill. That is, you can take out a notification and probably make a change, like standard deduction is a small change which can be made. So, or will this new tax system be introduced in phases? Like we are going to hear we're going to get some trailer out of this or some traces of that, and then probably over a period of time, this income tax, which is now a senior citizen, by the way. It was brought in 1961. It is now 64 years old. A lot of outdated stuff in this income tax act which needs to be cleansed, which needs to be updated. So there is a mix of things which a taxpayer is expecting, undoubtedly. A share from Ghalib, which I say in this context, हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले बजट के प्रावधान फिर भी कम निकले.
Okay, Sharad, thank you for that assessment. Let me bring in Professor Madhav Nalapad. Professor Nalapad, a pertinent point there was raised by Sharad Kohli, where he said that yes, the businessmen and entrepreneurs today are given the sort of protection they require, because there is a belief that if you are a person who's running a business or you're creating jobs, then your risk-taking ability is much higher, and that you are essentially seen as a risk taker. So the government has to provide you some sort of protection and cushioning to empower you to take that risk. That sensibility or that understanding is not there for a person who's just going ahead and performing a job as an employee, which essentially then makes up your middle class income earners in this country. Do you think there has to now be some sort of a revision in the government's understanding of what the role that middle class will be playing in the coming decades, by simply improving or increasing one's ability to spend on products that are being brought into the nation, to spend on businesses that are developing products in the market, rather than directly taxing their incomes?
Look, Devika, Sharad, the figures that he's given, and I think you and I, we are part of that 2 crores, the figures that he has given show that lower taxes create higher revenue, lower tax rate create higher revenue. The point is, it may take over a period of 2 or 3 years, but we have got 3 years to go before the next election, and before you have a fresh Lok Sabha poll. So from that point of view, I think it's well worth it to examine the tax structure in detail, and yes, with more of that 60 crores should get into the tax-paying bracket, and for that you need 2 things. 1, lower rates, and 2, the absence of fear, frankly, where matters of compliance are concerned. Now, I think that has been, I'm sure the Prime Minister has emphasized that. The Finance Minister, who's herself trained in accounting and finance, will definitely be aware of that. The fact of the matter is that fear is never a good incentive. Fear drives people away, it drives investment away. You have to replace it with hope and expectation. And that once, and I think the Prime Minister has made a very welcome start by decriminalizing several statutes, and I'm certain he's going to go ahead and decriminalize even more. The fact is that, you're putting this kind of criminal penalties in a statute doesn't add to a revenue, doesn't add to a tax-paying base. It simply basically incentivizes people to spend more on those few officials who are corrupt and ensure that they are safe, that they get off the hook. The people who get penalized are the honest taxpayers who don't do such kind of dodging. So yes, Devika, I think both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are aware of the need to ensure that the middle class join the ranks of taxpayers in large numbers, and I think they are very clear that the path to that is lower tax rates and easier compliance, and that goes for GST as well. Levying a single rate across different classes of income, whether it's 20 lakhs per year or 200 lakhs or 2,000 lakhs. Well, I personally believe there should be a graduated scale, and I from the beginning believe that the GST rates need to be brought down, because one of the major disincentives that have been told to me by people who are not investing in India but transferring their funds abroad or even settling abroad is that the GST regime for them is a bit irksome in terms of the number of regulations and compliances. That's been significantly simplified during Modi 3.0. In fact, Modi 3.0 marks a significant improvement in regulations and in ease of compliance, and I'm quite certain that that positive momentum will continue in this coming budget by the Finance Minister, who, as I said, is an accomplished expert in the economy herself, Finance Minister Sitaraman.
Okay, all right. Rajiv Gupta, bring you into the conversation. Rajiv Gupta, the middle class making up 31% of the total population, and some, these are just estimates, but paying 55% of the total income tax collections and 64% of the total GST collections. Clearly, the numbers do seem a little bit skewed, not in the favor of the Aam Aadmi. Would you agree with what the previous panelists have said, that there has to be now some sort of a revision in the government and our understanding of who the middle class truly is? What are their income brackets today?
I think, to my mind, you see these statistics sometimes tell stories which are incorrect. See, I think Sharad Koleji said that the new middle class is people who are earning about 1 lakh of rupees, 1,25,000 rupees a month. I think if we go by that, then only 2% of this country probably falls in that kind of bracket. So we need to understand, first of all, who do we call middle class? What do we understand from it? The fact of the matter is that there are only 2-3% of the people who are giving income tax, and most of them are the only middle class which you can call actually middle class. On the other side, you also need to understand that there is about 84 crore people who are being given food subsidy. So question is, out of those 145 crore people, if you really look at it, the middle class in the real sense comprises of a very, very little mass, according to me. So that, I think, is something that first of all should be understood in its real essence. And then from there one needs to think as to what can be done. Now the question is, how much can the government lower these taxes? I think consistently there has been clear this thing of simplifying the tax regime. The new tax regime itself is a very, very simplified version. Earlier you used to have various kinds of things that you take deductions of, etc., and it would make it difficult for people to understand as to what to do. So now with this simplified tax regime, yes, I mean somewhat upward movement of those tax slabs, so that there is some relief that happens which takes care of inflation, etc., should be done, will be done. But if you really ask me, I do not see substantial changes happening in any of these, because fiscal consolidation is one side of things which has to happen. There is money that needs to be spent, and government has only indirect taxes and direct taxes as two methods by which they get anything in their kitty. Of course, they may also now want to do some kind of disinvestments, etc., to get in more money. But if you really look at it, to my mind, making these substantive changes on these things, at least I do not expect them to happen.
Okay, I want to bring in Professor Vivek Singh into the conversation. Professor Vivek Singh, a pertinent point raised there, right? When we say that the government only has essentially two sources, you're talking about direct and indirect taxes. But as far as direct taxes are concerned, in your assessment, could the government or should the government be providing some sort of relief now after being in power for 10 years to the middle class? Because that's really been an expectation of the middle class since day one. It's been an expectation from 2014. Would it not be perhaps feasible for the government to reduce direct income taxes so that people can actually have more cash in their banks to spend? Because today we're also, as others have pointed out, we are under a GST regime as well. So in a way, the middle class feels that I'm being pinched from all corners.
No doubt demand is very important, but we have to understand in totality. So we know that budget is just a game of revenue and expenditure. So ultimately we know that we have limited sources of revenue that we have to think always. And 48 lakh crore we are going to have now in this I am expecting that more than 50 lakh crore we are going to have the tax. So ultimately we have, and there is cap of more than 15-16 lakh crore. So ultimately we have no other option, but there is no doubt that the budget is going to be growth oriented, and we have to fulfill the aspiration of 145 crore people. So actually, if we are just discussing the developed economy, we are discussing the 2047 economy. So we want to be developed nation, then there is no doubt that we have to spend a lot. At the same time, there are 90 crore people who need food security. So these are the challenges that we have to face, and for that there is requirement of money, and that we have to generate. So no doubt that one important thing is that we have to have control over our fiscal deficit. At the same time, we have to spend more. We have to look at because there is very little chance in case of the demand side, because you are saying that we have to have cash flow so that we can have the generated demand, but we can do only in case of supply side, because we are providing more incentives to the industry. Then there will be production boosts, and ultimately the people will have more disposable income, which will ultimately boost the consumption. That we can do. So there is no doubt that there are so many sectors that we have to look, but as far as middle class is concerned, there is no doubt that 2 crore people are going to give the tax. So they are the only resource that is going to generate the cash. But ultimately, my expectation is that basic deduction, basic limit, which is 3 lakh, that may be increased to 5 lakh as far as exemption is concerned. But no doubt, if anyone is getting 20 lakh per year, then absolutely there is chance. I am thinking that the government must think, and Nirmala Sitharaman must think, and some sort of relief has to be given even those people who are getting more than 20 lakh per year. So that is, and one thing is more that as far as the salary reduction is concerned, 75,000 it may be increased to 1 lakh. That is the expectation of me. But in case of insurance, in case of phone loan interest, something government has to do, because ultimately if you want to have more money, if you want to give more money to the people, then these things are going to happen. But we also have to think that there are many other sectors like rural development we have to think, and MSME sector we have to think. We have targeted that in the 5 years, 3 lakh crores we are going to spend, and 30 million homes are going to build. Infrastructure development is one aspect that we have to think. Skill development is one aspect that we have to think. So ultimately we require money, we need more revenue, and that is the one aspect that we have to consider. So I am not expecting that like many other budgets, something very special is going to happen in this budget, but we can expect that little bit relief may be given to the taxpayers.
Okay, Sumit, we'll bring you into the conversation. Sumit, also, taking this forward with you from a slightly political perspective as well. Like I said, we've been having the same conversation for the past 10 years now. In a way, a lot of political strategists will say that if the government were to give some relief to the Aam Aadmi or the middle class, that's something they would probably do closer to the next election. In my assessment, that's probably not going to be very feasible for the government, because ultimately you have to give some time for the middle class to realize that yes, actually the changes that you've brought have improved my standard of living. So I want to understand from your perspective on the same as well, as looking at relief towards the Aam Aadmi from a political lens, but also for there to now be a revision and, like I said, a redefinition, because everybody on the panel today has a completely different understanding of where the middle class actually falls.
Devika ji, thanks for having me on your show. I kindly allow me a minute more. I want to answer the question in 2 points. One is the numbers and the economic perspective. Another is the political perspective, which is as important. Look, the fact remains, the most important thing which we all have to understand. If you look at the receivables of the government, last budget I'm quoting, the highest receivable, the segment which gives you the highest receivable is income tax. It's more than GST, it's more than corporate tax. It has to be noted. You have a 4.3 trillion economy, you have only 2 crore people, jo Kohli sahab ne kaha, ending up paying income tax, but still that is more than everybody else put together. It's more than the GST collected. Incidentally, your GST collected is double than what you estimated when you started the GST. So I have to admit this, the people who pay income tax are the golden goose. You are the blue-eyed boys or the blue-eyed girls, whatever you want to call it. And you are really taking the brunt of the revenue side of the budget because you are contributing maximum. That has to be very clear. I've been asked this question numerous times, what can be done? Look, if you are contributing to the highest section or the segment of the budget, you might be only 2 crores, but you are the golden boys or the golden girls, whatever you say. So don't expect the things to change. Don't expect things to kindly change. There are 2 or 3 things. Under Prime Minister Modi, there was a time if you had a salary of 50 lakhs, you will 101% get a notice because you had filed a return of 50 lakhs. Now those days are gone. Faceless assessment, no harassment, 99.9% returns are not scrutinized. Your what do you call this? If your refund has to come, it comes in your bank. So a lot of things have been streamlined by Prime Minister Modi and a lot of things have been done. Now Prime Minister Modi was always of the opinion, if I have to lower the income tax rates, I have to make it simplified. That is a new tax regime. That is why it is very simplified. Koi deduction दाएं बाएं कुछ नहीं है. You pay a tax because if you look at Singapore and all, where the regimes are quite simplified, where I used to pay tax, it was very straight and very straight deduction. So now coming to the political side of it, now Prime Minister Modi has today indicated Ma Lakshmi ki Varsha hogi, and when Prime Minister Modi makes such a statement, the indications are quite strong that he is going to do something. Now what is he going to do? What are his options? Look, if you look at the middle class, 43 crores is the official ankada, official number of the Sarkar. You can extend it to what Kohli Saab said, 60 crores possibly. Even at 43 crores, if I look at it, that is 31% of the population, which you already said. Now, this population is concentrated in the cities and in the urban pockets. Now, if you look at the political game of today, ruler is more about sorted. There is a way they work. Where the problem is, where the winnability is the urban pockets. Because urban people have their own mind and their mind changes with every quarter, honestly, because we all work for corporates, every quarter the mind changes. So now if you want to really capitalize to that vote bank, what you said, Devika ji, you have nailed it because you have to deliver it now. For 1 or 2 years, I must see those things changing up. So when it comes to the next election, I have tasted the fruit. I have tasted the pudding, because if it is a promise, there will be somebody who will come and promise earth, sky and the moon. He'll say, मैं आपके घर के नीचे Mercedes खड़ा कर दूंगा. There will be a political party one day who will say that. So let's not get into that. So Prime Minister Modi is planning something and he will try to get more people into the tax net, because the challenge is that if you look at the revenues of the country, there's not much he can do if he gets more people into the tax net. He simplifies it. Regarding GST, I always wanted to make one point. I'm using this platform to again reiterate to the government of India. I'm sure somebody is listening. Look, the advantage of GST can be capitalized if you use GST as a tool for collateral-free limited lending. Limited lending, collateral-free. Just do one thing. If I am salaried, I can get a credit card of 10 lakh rupees, right? If you're a business wala, even if you get 1 lakh, 2 lakh ki property rakho. That is the biggest lacuna here. So if you can use GST and couple it with AI, do a collateral-free limited lending. If I have a small business, I can get 5 lakhs, I can get 10 lakhs, or I can get 50 lakhs. That can really revolutionize the industry. Second point I want to make, look, if you are self-employed, up to 75 lakhs, out of the 35 lakhs can be treated as your kharcha, cost of living. But why such privileges are not given to the bichara nokri wala, salary wala? If I'm self-employed, if I'm getting 75 lakhs as a revenue, 35 lakhs can be exempted by it's my cost of living and doing that business. After that, I pay tax. But for a salaried person, they are not provisions. You cannot expect me to support a family with 50,000 ka standard deduction plus minus, 50,000-60,000 rupees. That is not how it works. But there are challenges, there are opportunities. Now the magic will be how Nirmala ji is going to do the jugglery and match these challenges with the opportunities and also keep the physical health okay with global challenges happening, with geopolitical challenges happening, with all those things happening, and with two hostile neighbors on the right and left, and with America telling you, you have a deficit of $32 billion with me, sir, Mr. Modi, come and buy these weapons from me. I don't want to see a deficit with you. We have these practical things which are on us. Then we are again feeding 80 crore people. We have to do public health. We have to build infrastructure, $330 billion on infrastructure, and doing more, and still people are not happy. Then they will say, Modi ne kya kiya? Well, and with all these things happening, and there is one incident which can happen, and you can start writing the political obituary of BJP and Prime Minister Modi. Those things also happen. Then there will be somebody who will come and promise the sky, earth, and the moon. Then there will be Hindenburg again. And then with all those things happening, it's not easy to do it here.
Yes.
So, in order for them to predict something or to do something drastic may not happen. But stage is set. I am going to see some tangible steps, and you are absolutely right. For the middle class, they are the people who want to taste the pudding first, then believe the pudding. So when they will taste the pudding, it will have implications in next few elections. And if you are looking from that political prism, this is the right time. Yehi avsar hai, aap abhi kariye. This is the right time to do it. You have 4 more years to go. When 4 more years, if you can win the middle class, game is over for opposition.
Okay, all right. I wish we had more time, but I thank all of our panelists for joining us to take that conversation forward.